Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, say this is the morning podcast with Jacob and Ethan.
This is hell. Hey there, fuckheads. What's going on? Breakfast is hell is back. And let me tell you, it's gonna be hell. I have gotta stop lecturing people. I was listening back to the podcast, and some people. Breakfast is ASMR. Some people hate the weirdness. Some people are weirded out by the weirdness. And for me, I got a proclivity to double down on the weirdness. Because if you don't accept and love me at my weirdest, then did you even love and accept me at all? So, but besides that, I was listening back to my podcasts, and I gotta stop lecturing people. Not even lecturing people, just. I can be entertaining when I'm trying to be funny, and when I'm trying to be provocative, and when I'm preaching, but I don't. I'm not a very interesting teacher. I'm not a very interesting lecturer. I'm a good ranter. I'm a good fan. I'm a good provocateur. But I suck at teaching. I have finished up a round of lit submissions. So, you don't know, nor should you, nor do I want you to know how the publishing world works. But in summum, a quick summation, a brief summary, one might say. I don't have an MFA or any contacts in the publishing world, so just about the only way for me to get an editor or an agent to ever take a manuscript of mine seriously would be for me to have prior publishing credits in respected literary journals, which is a thing that exists. And you wouldn't know them if I said them, and I wouldn't know them if I didn't have to submit to them. But it's this whole thing that exists, and none of them make any money, and they're all labors of love. And so maybe they should just stop. Um, because in effect, they're really just only supported by writers who are reading them because they need to get published in them, or by agents and people in the publishing world who are trying to discover new talent. It has zero benefit for the common man, except for these like really weird lit stands you come across on Twitter. By the way, dude, all these authors have freaking Twitter accounts. Like, you want to know where writers hang out, MFA grads hang out? They are all on Twitter. And it's just this weird universe of like lit stands hanging out on the tweet globe. And it's, you know, in a world with furries, I'd hate to say I find literary Twitter unsettling, but it is. It's just a group of people giving Cormac McCarthy a blowjob, and I don't want it. I mean, I want Cormac McCarthy to get his blowjobs, and I wouldn't mind, I don't mind blowjobs generally, but I don't want to be witness to the intellectual blowjob giving of a bunch of careerist people in their late 20s and 30s. but I have to publish in these journals, and some of them, I will say this in case any of them ever listen. Um, some of them I do like because I'm a liar. I'm a liar who says things in order to serve his career and to serve his interests. I am the least scrupulous of the least scrupulous. I make Hitler look like Jesus, people. Okay? Just remember that. Just remember, if you ever start thinking I'm funny or admirable, just remember that Mussolini takes lessons from me. Um, God, I hate careerists. I hate people. I hate career. Career, career, career. You know that pavement song, Cut Your Hair. Career, career. I mean, it's just so sad because that's why you get into art, right? Is because you think career, career, career is so stupid because you think there must be something more to life, and yet you got all these sons and daughters of daddy and mommy who want to be artists and they want to make important things and they have a special heart and soul. And then they get their MFA and then they submit to Gulf Coast, and then mom and dad will be proud of them because they have a career, career, career. That's. I was doing some online English tutoring, and this dude was asking me, like, he was using a British accent, and he said he was having a hard time, or people were having a hard time distinguishing when he would say Korea versus career, and I was trying to do it in a British accent, and I had some British people say it, and if you ever want to make fun of the British, have them try to say a career and Korea because they pronounce them the exact same. Korea, Korea, Korea. Now I'm saying it like a bad stereotype of a Chinese man, which is not what I intended to do. But I can't do accent. I can do accents, but the accent that comes out is always a different accent than the one I intended. Uh, but I do enjoy some of these journals. In some of them, I read something and it is mind-numbingly dull or is very obviously chosen because of its like wokeness or social awareness or the identity of the story or of the author. And it's very often when something is very obviously chosen for those reasons, it's very obvious because the quality of the work um, is low and its politics and ideas are simplistic at best. And I think of my own work and I think, man, if I was in this journal, I would be 5 paces closer to being able to get a book published and have a relationship with a publisher. But this person who just like regurgitated early 2020, mid 2020 New York Times race politics is getting that nod, and their work is markedly inferior to mine. And that is a hard thing to swallow. Now, I will say, I don't want to say that like everything you come across in these journals or every journal is like this. And there have been many times I've been reading in these journals, and it's just like game recognized game. Like if you, I'm sure like professional basketball players, if you play MJ or you watch like film of MJ, you're like, can't do that. And I've definitely had many of those moments where I'm just like, that's a lot better than anything I can do. So respect, not trying to just like blame my lack of success and take out my frustrations with my difficulties and resentment. Um, but there is an element of wokeness to these journals that is frustrating, and it's I really don't believe in cancel culture. I really don't believe in wokeness. I think it's really overstated. Um, like it exists, but I don't think it's quite the boogeyman that people think it is. But I will say in publishing and in lit, and especially in these journals, like all the people that you're that like are like everything you're afraid about when it comes to like hyper online cancel culture people and woke people, and like who like competing to be the most politically correct and competing to be like the most judgmental of like any possible transgression against what they deem to be acceptable behavior toward marginalized and underrepresented groups. And honestly, just the most patronizing, like, we're going to rectify the wrongs of society, and how dare the white male hegemony, we're so sorry, we're so sorry, we're so sorry, we're so sorry ness. um I would gander that it is all accumulated in this universe that I am trying to break into because it's necessary for my advancement. And that causes me feelings. And, I mean, I was reading, I'm not going to rehash this, but if you want to look up some things, look up the controversy over the AIDS poem that was published in The Nation. Look up the controversy over the painting of the death of Emmett Till that was hung in the Whitney. Look up over the Poetry Foundation sacking its, or forcing the heads of it to resign during the peak of the Black Lives Matter protests. And if you look into those stories, you'll get a good sense of the sort of thing that I just find objectionable. And I don't want to rehash that. I don't want to teach. I don't want to lecture. I don't want to do that shit anymore. I want to make you laugh. I want to make you cry. I just want you to listen and get my streaming count higher. Please. Because I need it for my sense of self-validation. The only thing I want to talk about before I'm done with this son of a bitch, this motherfucker, this bit of content for your ear holes, is, you can rant about cancel culture all you want, man. But then I was trying to go back and listen to a little bit of the Rogan a week ago. And it's like, I don't know, man. It just feels like everything's becoming the worst example of what we thought it might be. Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. And it's almost like, can't anybody criticize the faults of one side without falling into the pit hole of the faults of the other side? I mean, even the two sideness of it, even just even the fact that, like, the terms of what I'm saying, like, that there are two sides. It's sad. It's sad. I'm saddened. But look, I can't deny that there are these realities in publishing, and especially when it comes to these smaller journals. And I just want to bring up a cautionary tale, perhaps. Cautionary tale to myself, because what am I doing other than screaming into the void as I stare at. So my grandma died, and I'm now living in the house of my dead grandma. And if you want to know what it's like to live in a scary old house that was always scary with peeling wallpaper, in which your grandma was once living but now is deceased, you can ask me. But it would not be so scary. It would not be so strange. The rickety house that makes strange noises at all hours of the day would be one thing. But there are like 100 photos on the walls, and I'm not even exaggerating. And they are all staring at me all the time. And there are all these little figurines on all the surfaces, and I'm not allowed to move any of them. And the combined weight of history and the lives of my family are constantly staring at me from every surface as I go about my day. And there's also a camera watching me as I come in and out of the house. So, the weight of history is upon me. But all I'm trying to get at something. I really have a point. I mean, there is, in the cosmic sense, there is no point. Everything is meaningless. But in the terms of this podcast, I wanted to close it off by talking about Hobart. Hobart is slash still is, originally had a little bit of a print run, but it's a web only journal, which is a thing that like came to prominence when the internet started, and for the earliest part of like online only journals, they were disrespected by publishing, but now for most people, and I would say in most circumstances, they're held in equal esteem to print journals or print and online journals. And Hobart used to be a very respected journal. I really liked Hobart. I really wanted to get in. I never got close, but I really wanted to get into Hobart just because I liked it. Um, Wigleaf was another one that I really like. If you Wigleaf does flash fiction as well, so if you want some good flash fiction, Wigleaf's a good one. I mean, some good ones I do like. If I don't know if you're interested, but Wigleaf I like, Three Penny Review I like, Gulf Coast I like, New Letters is good. Um, what is the Massachusetts Review I've liked? I like the Santa Monica Review, even though it's really woke. Noon Annual puts out really good stuff. Poetry Magazine, of course, is really good. Rattle, I don't. Smartish Pace. I prefer Smartish Pace when it comes to poetry. Um, there are some good journals, but Hobart. So they published this interview last fall, and it was the woman that runs Hobart, and I don't know if she was already crazy. I mean, it seems like COVID made her crazy. Like she went COVID crazy, got on OnlyFans and shit, and she had this interview with this dude, and they were bitching about some of the same things I talked about earlier in this podcast about the way publishing works and how it's very woke and the sorts of people who are trying to get published and the sorts of people who run these small journals. And if you want, you can probably, if you just do a quick search of like Hobart fall interview, um, you can probably find it, or just Hobart controversy. But anyway, the entire staff of editors at Hobart resigned, and like the editor in chief, I think her name is Elizabeth Ellen. She's a public figure. I don't think that counts as slander. Um, but she like she just doubled down on the whole like, well, we're gonna be a problematic alt right problematic content site, and the quality on it has like is like dumpster fire level. Like reading through some of that stuff, I'm like, it's like getting your first poem you wrote or like your high school poetry published, which and like even before you tried to re-edit it as in adulthood. Um, which is like I don't have anything against high school poetry, and I think that like kids should be more encouraged to just make things and to make things as good as they can make them and live with that and then make something better later. I don't think everything has to be perfect, and not every pursuit has to be in the pursuit of perfection. But um, it's just like it's an object lesson in going down the tube, and she's like doubled down on hypersexualized content in her own personal stuff she releases, and like she like doubles down on the whole like we're gonna be like she posted the picture with Sam Kinison listening to Sam Kinison, and it's just one of these things that makes me it's I don't even feel like whatever you do what you want, girl. I hope she's well mentally. I hope it's just like an act. I hope it's not like her actually freaking out. But um one, it's like one of these things just like it just makes me hate Joe Rogan. It just makes me hate that whole corner of the universe more, because like is that all it is like, well, if you're not a tote bag toting like lefty on your way for the public confession of taking advantage of white privilege, you have to like be a woman with your tits out sitting and listening to Sam Kinison and like admitting to being a bitch. Like it's just almost I don't know, there's just it's just I wrestle, I make stuff. And I don't even with the writing and stuff, I don't care. Even with the music, I don't really care. I'll just make whatever it is I feel like making at the time. But especially with this podcast, I really do think a lot about not wanting to get caught in one of two spheres, and not wanting to get caught in ideology, and not wanting to get caught in being part of a camp, and not wanting to have a drum beat I beat. And it just feels like there's a way to criticize the way publishing works and the kind of people who run it and the kind of people in power and the sorts of things it publishes without like devolving into a caricature of Joe Rogan girl. Um, and I'm not even, like, or I just say Joe Rogan girl because like it could be a guy doing the same thing. It's just in this very specific instance, it it's a woman. Um, and but even that, it's like I have to, it is a little bit frustrating. Like I have to be in this podcast, I have to be mindful of like, I have to make sure I'm making it clear that I'm like criticizing a person who seems to like jump on the alt right train, um, whether for career purposes or because they need an identity because their leftist friends have abandoned them, um, versus just like saying like because I don't want you to confuse it and like that you think that I am like making it a gendered thing, that I think somehow it's gendered, that it's gender specific, that this sort of thing happens. And even the fact that I have to clarify that and always watch my steps is frustrating. And I don't, even that's the problem, right? It's like I have to, everybody knows what I mean, but it doesn't mean that I can just say whatever I want to say because people don't care what you mean. People, if they want to get you, they'll take whatever you say, take it out of context, and use it against you. And the situations in which that happens are rare and few and far between. But when it does, it is savage. And then I also have the added weight of trying to get into these publishing houses and knowing that they probably at some point will listen to this, or some journal, if they're really considering me, might listen to this podcast. Or especially even if they don't, if I do almost get a deal on a book, they will listen to this podcast. And I have to make sure that like I'm just, if I'm going to do problematic content, if I'm going to give my opinions, if I'm going to tread the line, I have to make sure I tread the line really, really carefully and make sure that I am being aware of everything I can be aware of. And that freaking sucks. So, I think I do have a lot of guests. I have a lot of guests who come on this podcast and are worried about, oh, can I say this? Can I do this? Do we need to cut this? And like none of these people will ever are not involved with people who are going to cancel them because they're woke. They're not involved in jobs where people are even going to care. Their friends aren't going to care. But I do have friends, and I am trying to break myself into a certain kind of thing where it does matter. And that just makes me, I don't know that I can, not everything has to have closure. Um, Things can be disjointed and abstract, and maybe that's the best I can do. I can't make sense of it for you. Um, Otherwise than to say I feel disappointed. Like when I look back at that story of Hobart, it makes me sad because I liked the journal. I feel bad for the girl. I hope she's doing well. The woman who runs it. I I feel like there's probably a good way to make a problematic and like it's almost careerist. Like if she's not crazy, then it's pure careerist. It's one of these things of like Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan doubling down on the alt-right content. It's like instead of actually having opinions, you feel like your old liberal audience is slipping away. And so in order to still have an audience, you double down on this other sort of thing. And all it is like I had my girlfriend was talking to me the other day and we were talking about like what would I have done, and specifically we're talking about, if you want to look it up, the poem about AIDS that was published in the Nation. They ended up retracting a poem that was published in the Nation about AIDS that adopted black dialect, and it was written by a white person. And she was asking like what I would have done, and I said, well, I probably would have been like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I did it, and I'll think about it long and hard, and I'll take it into consideration the next thing I work on. And then she was like, well, how would that work for your career? And I guess I'd never even asked that question. But, like that would be like the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do if you get in trouble is to like say the thing you should say as a decent human being. And you have like three options. You either one, just completely stay silent. Two, you just fucking grovel on the ground and beg for forgiveness and say how wrong you were. Or three, you double down and just start making like you just double down. And it feels like I hate that with Joe Rogan and with Jordan Peterson and with Hobart, that like the only the option these people have seemed to have decided on is, instead of like for whatever reason, is to double down. It's just to like, oh yeah, we said some things that people didn't like, so now we're just gonna like adopt this other thing. And it doesn't make you brave, it just makes you a careerist, but in the opposite direction. And for like, whether you're just like a tote bag toting like person, like saying that my fucking story about a like problematic closeted gay man is too problematic to be in the pages of your journal, or you're like sitting with Sam Kinison and publishing stories about how you liked getting fucked unconsensually, which, hey, I'm all for a good rape fantasy. But there's like doing it, and then there's the whole like, there's the whole, there's like an honest way of doing it, and there's doing it just for the sake of doing it, maybe. Um, yeah, like I'm not, I think that's my, because there's some of that content on Hobart now, and it's like I don't even have a problem with it if like if that's what you do and you're like doing it well. But I guess I have a problem. I don't have a problem with anything as long as it's done well. But I have a problem with um, like, it seems gratuitous. It seems like, and even I don't even mind things done for the sake of being shocking for the sake of being shocking. I guess it almost feels like Hobart isn't doing things that are shocking for the sake of being shocking. It's doing things to like play. It's like trying to be the literary journal now for the alt right, and that's what I have a problem with. It doesn't really. It seems to be careerist and not principled. Um, and so, there's just got to be a different way, and it just is frustrating because it just feels like with these people who have gone like double down on the alt rightness, to get back to the point I was making with the Joe Rogans and the Jordan Petersons and the Hobarts, it's all about career, 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 and it's none of it's about like intellectual or professional sincerity or honesty. And hey, I'm not saying my work is great. I'm not saying that I should be published. I'm not trying to blame my not being published on wokeness. I know it might come off that way. Really, I'm not, and my work, it just some of it, some of the things I submit, I feel like I'm really not that pleased with, and a few of the things, a small like maybe 10%, I do feel are quite good, but I totally get that like maybe it's just not good enough. I'm not blaming my lack of being published on the journals, but it just, because I was listening back to the episode I did, I think 24, 26, with Alex Chang and Britt Bird. And, I'm hoping to do another episode with them soon. Hoping to do one with Edward Halsall. Hoping to do some more with Ethan coming up here in this next batch of podcasts. But, yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. Maybe I can best analyze it. If you've ever been in a relationship where you feel like you're trying to do everything right, but it's almost like you just need to get primitive about stuff, like trying to talk about your feelings and be rational and be sincere and be productive. Like at some point, all the irrational fucking anger is not fucking coming out, and it's just building up, and like maybe what you need instead is to just fucking be animalistic. Um, and I feel like there's a frustration with me with these journals, with it's just frustration. It's just frustration, and I don't have a way to fix it. And I guess I'm tired of like fighting a battle intellectually when it comes to debating people or talking to people or dealing with issues or ideas when it comes to either side of the aisle, because I feel like none of it at heart is actually intellectual, and none of it is actually rational, and none of it is actually like people grappling with ideas, and it's all identity and careerist bullshit, and like people defining themselves in opposition to other people and needing to define themselves because they feel lost and without a sense of identity, and because they need to feel like they're part of a group. And it's all just bullshit. It's all just bullshit. And I'm not saying like it's all bullshit, give up, but I'm just like, I'm not saying it's all bullshit in the sense of like, these alt-right people talking about how things are bullshit. I'm just like, I'm angry and frustrated and it's all bullshit. Like I would just be so much better off like turning off the TV and turning off the internet and not listening to anybody's podcast and not reading anybody's shit, because it's all politically motivated and it's all identity and none of the ideas in there are sincere, and it's all just a form of like grappling for power, and it's all just a form of like using ideas as weapons or adopting ideas and adopting personalities so that you can like have an audience. And it just fucking drives me up a wall. Anyway, that's my woke, anti-woke rant for the day. Breakfast is hell. 2023!